Okay, so in the last video we created this layout. As you can see, we've started to put the building blocks in place, but it's far from complete. So in this episode we're going to add the Google fonts and start adding more content to this home page. So firstly, to add the Google fonts, do a Google search for Google fonts and you'll come to this page. And on this page you have a listing of fonts that you can use. And to add a font, simply click on the font and this little box at the bottom appears. So click on this box and it'll give you a little bit of information which you can read. But what you need to do is click on the import button and it'll bring up this little import statement. And this is what you want to put in your style sheet. And then also in your style sheet you can then include these font families to your heading tags or your paragraph tags. So I've already gone ahead and done this, so you don't have to go searching through the Google font library. So let's go back to our code. Let's get rid of this and go to your style sheet, and underneath your last bit of code put a comment in and say Google fonts. And I've saved the fonts that we need here. So you need to copy this import URL and make sure you write it exactly as highlighted here. Copy this into your code and then also copy this following code. So we're going to add one font family to the heading tags and another to the paragraphs and the anchor tags. So I believe the font family we needed for this was this one. Maybe get rid of the anchor tags actually, because we might need a different font for the buttons. So let's copy this in as well and let's see how it looks. I may have them the wrong way around, we shall find out. Okay, so upload that, refresh the page and let's see what's going on. Okay, does that look like our design? Okay, these, let's switch them around and let's see if that makes a difference. We may also need to import the font weight. Actually, I think that looks a bit better. Okay, we'll go with that for now. That looks good enough for me. So let's play around with the size of the text up here, because at the moment it looks a little bit too big compared to our design. Okay, so where did we code this? We coded this somewhere up here, I believe. Business information, UL, list items. So let's set a font size of 14 pixels and go from there. They look a little bit better. Yeah, I think that might do it. Let's have a look. Another way to quickly get your font sizes and your spacing is to open up the developer tools and simply do the editing in here. 13, 14. Let's go for 14 pixels. I think there's on there. Let's add a margin right to these of 20 pixels. Maybe more. 30 pixels. That looks a little bit better. So let's copy and paste this in. And you'll also notice in the design that there's a little bit of padding above and below. Right now, that's not happening. So let's add a bit of padding to this whole section. And the whole section is called top banner. So we can have a look what it looked like in here, say padding, and add 10 pixels and then 0. So now we have 10 pixels of padding to the top and the bottom of this field. As you can see, the green highlighting. And I think that looks pretty good so far. So let's add that as well. I forgot the name of the div. Top banner. Top banner, padding, 10 pixels and 0. Okay, cool. I'll leave that for now. Right, so the next part of the design, if we zoom out, is this section here, the white section. So let's start building that. So we've been building in the header. Now it's time to go into the homepage section, or the homepage template. So here we can see that's all we have in here so far is the text saying this is the home page. So let's change that. So firstly, create a section, div class section, and call this section white as well. So add another class, section white. And the reason for this is we can add a padding to all sections. So every section on the site will have the similar padding, so it's consistent. And then the section white can add your background color of white, or we can add any modifications to this. So and also add the container in here. Sorry, I'm used to my other code in editor, which automatically creates these divs for me. Div slash container. Close this div as well. And let me have a look at the design. So we have two sections mainly. We have a left section and a right section. And within that right section we have another two sections down here. So I would say this is roughly 30% of the width, and then the rest is 70%. We can adjust as we go along anyway. So div class width 30. Now it's important to remember, if you was using something like Twitter Bootstrap, you'd have your own naming conventions rather, and that would basically lay out how much of a width a certain container takes up. Now because we're writing this from scratch, we're creating our own sections, so this width 30 at the moment does nothing. It doesn't matter if we name this width 30 or width 70 or whatever. We need to create this, and then in the style section up here we need to then give that a width of wherever we need. So width 30, and I believe we have an image, so image source, and we can find out how big this image has to be by going into Photoshop and doing a rough selection. 367 width by 558. So let's round those up. 370 by 560. So 370 by 560. We'll add an alt tag. This is for screen readers and SEO purposes as well. So we can say businessman. And then finally add a class to this image. We want to make everything on this site responsive. So if you're viewing this website on a mobile phone or on a tablet device, then we want the images to show and not be too big or too small. So for this we want to give it a class of max width. What we will do with the max width is to say that this image can only be 100% of its parent div, so it can only be 100% of this width 30. We don't want it to break outside of it, and we don't want it to be too small either. So close that off, and that looks alright. Div class width 70. And as you can guess from the naming conventions, this width is going to be 30% wide and this is going to be 70%. And in this section we have firstly this section. So this is 100% of the div. So in here we will put the title. We'll put a paragraph. Top of the paragraph. You can put anything in here for now. And then underneath that we have a title, so we'll put it as a H2 tag because this is one of the first titles you'll see, so generally this would be a H1 tag because it's the most important, and then going down this would be a H2 and maybe H3. A few of these could be H3s, so we'll keep this as a H2 for now. And what does this title say? Focused on our clients' most critical issues. Most critical. And inside here then we have two roughly 50% containers. Maybe this one's a little bit bigger, so 60% and 40%. But I don't want to confuse you yet, so what we will do, we'll come outside those two divs, so we're outside the width 30 and outside the width 70, and we'll add in a clear div. So that means everything else underneath these two divs will then stay in line and appear where they're supposed to. So let's save that first of all. Upload to our server and then see what changes have been made. So refresh the page. Okay, so as you can see, the main image we added is stuck to this top of, and maybe the bottom, no, just the top of this section. Then the text underneath then follows, and that's because we haven't set any widths or any padding or anything yet. So let's go back to the design and let's roughly measure how much padding there is on each section. So there's 144 there. 148, so 146, and it's probably the same there. Yeah, so roughly 146 padding, but I think if we add that to this section there will be too much spacing. But let's have a look. So let's go to our style, scroll down to the very bottom, and you can put more comments in here, and we can say homepage styling. So let's put in section, because that is what we created here. Add a padding of 146 pixels at top and bottom, and none to the left and right. And the reason we don't put any to the left and the right is because inside of this section we have a container which has padding to the left and the right. So let's have a look. So that's quite a lot of padding. We could go for less, I suppose. So let's take that down a bit. Let's say 100 pixels. Okay, so I think in the real world that works a little bit better. And if there's not too much padding. Okay, that's good so far. Right, this section here, this little mouse icon, we'll come back to that. Let's get the basics in first and then we'll really spruce this up. So next part is to add this section, I suppose. Let's have a look. Let's make them float first. So we'll put this on the left hand side and this on the right hand side. So width 30, and then we say the width for this section is 30%. So don't get these confused. Even though we saying width is 30, this could actually be 70%. Right, I'm just giving it a simple name that we can remember what it actually does. So width 30 is 30%, and it floats to the left. Width 70 is width 70%, and that also floats to the left. Okay, so everything is floating now. Let me show you what would happen if there was no clear. So if there was no clear here after the two floated divs, you see the footer is down here for now. Okay, I think if we put something in afterwards, that may be better. Yeah, so if we wanted this section, this bad text or whatever, to come in underneath here, we would have to add in a clear section, but right now it comes right under this second section, which is floated to the left. So let's add that clear back in. And now the footer is down here, and the padding of this section comes down to here. So that's what we want. Now looking at the design, there's a bit of a space between these two sections. There's also a little curved radius on this image, so we can add that in very simply. And say we wanted to use this curved image on all of our images, we could just add a class, so curved image to the image, save that, and then go to our style sheet and add in curved image. And to make this curved, you simply put in border radius. Oh, I can't spell. Border radius. What am I doing? And let's try 10 pixels. What is going on? Border radius. Okay, 10 pixels. So as you can see right now, the border is quite sharp. Now the border, the edges are quite sharp. And now we have a slight curve in them. Now maybe too much. So let's take the border radius down slightly. So you could have a massive border radius, so let's say 100 pixels. And that would give you something that looks like this. Like a massive curve. Or for our example, let's put a border radius of 5 pixels. And that should just be a slight curve on the image. Okay, that works. For the image as well, we also added the max width. So we want to add that class in as well. Max width, and the max width is going to be 100%. And if we set the height as auto, that will then shrink or expand the image to stay in proportion. Okay. So right now, this width 70 and the width 30, they align with each other perfectly, but there's no space in between them like in the design. So what we could do is add padding left to the width 70 and say 60 pixels. And that gives you a nice little space there. Let's see what the actual width is. It's 133. So let's take that down to 100. And there's a nice spacing in between them then. But rather than adding it to this width 70, let's add another class. And we could say padding left 100. And then go to this padding left 100 and say padding left 100 pixels. And the reason why we didn't add it straight to this width empty is because we might want to use this width empty again, and the next time we use it we may not want to pad in to the left. Okay, great. So now we're design. We need to focus on the spacing issues. You can see there's either a padding or a margin. There's a margin on top of this P tag, the paragraph tag. So let's take that off. Okay, so let's give this its own section, and we can call this intro, no, not intro, main section right. And the reason we're doing that is because we don't want to affect all the paragraph tags within the site, we just want to affect this one. So we can say main section right, nope, and then, or another way maybe to do this would just to add a class to this and say no margin. Yeah, that would be easier actually. Let's get rid of this. So no margin. And margin 0. That's a little bit more like our design. In the design, each part of every word is capitalized, the first word. So I think we can do this rather than going in here and adjusting it, because this could be a bit of a pain. Let's put that back like it is. Does it do it with all of them? Actually, let's check. No, it's just this. So we could give this another class. We don't want to give too many classes, but it's just working out the way this design is. So capitalize first, and then capitalize first, and this text transform, and it's capitalized, I believe. Refresh this. So now you can see the first letter of each word is capitalized. Great. In the design, yeah, that's fine. So now this may be a little bit confusing for you, but I'll take it slow. So within this width empty, we have another two sections, which one is 60% wide and one is 40% wide. So we can do the following. Width 60, and once again, don't forget to clear these divs, guys. I think that's one of the main things you will make a mistake on when developing, is forgetting to put classes in to affect the other rows, because if we didn't, this would mess the layout up. Now there are other ways, like I've said before, to clear the divs. You may find them better. This is personally just my workflow. So okay, so we have two paragraphs of text, a border on the right hand side, or we could add this to this part and add it to the left. Yeah, we'll see which one works best for us when we put in. Okay, so firstly, let's add the two blocks of paragraph text. Now, as a web developer, sometimes you're not going to have content available. So go to a website called lorem-ipsum.com. Lorem ipsum, I believe, is dummy text, which is of, what is it of? Latin, sorry, it's a Latin text. So generate lorem ipsum and copy this first paragraph. There's maybe too much text, we can edit it. Go to your editor, create one paragraph tag, put the text in, close that paragraph, then do the same again. Okay, so let's see what our site now looks like. Okay. So you can see the footer is over here, something has gone wrong, but I think that may be because we haven't floated these divs yet. Width 60, width 40, clear. Let's see what's going on. So add all the widths together so that makes sense. So they're all in the same place. So width 60, and let's just copy these. Well, actually we can do these. Copy these and change the values. So 40 becomes 40. Save that. Let's see if that fixes it. Should do. Oh, right, okay. Let's put some text here just to see if that works. Okay, what is going on? Let's take this away a minute and see if that fixes it. I'm unsure at the moment what's going on. Okay. Why is that doing that? It's empty. Okay, we'll leave it like that for now. I'm not quite sure why that's happening actually. Well, we'll revisit this to see if there's something I've messed up. Okay, so as you can see from this design, there's way too much text here. So let's take a little bit of text out. Doesn't matter, just do a random selection of text. Let's see if that looks any better. Take a bit more out. Okay, that's great because we'll be adding a pad in here. And in this right hand side, what does our design say? Okay, so we'll add a quote. So block quote. And the text says, we bring deep functional expertise but unknown. Okay, whatever that means. We bring deep functional expertise. I'm just going to make this part up because I can't remember, to the unknown. Maybe doesn't make sense, but there you go. So block quote, and underneath it looks like there's an image with a bit of text. So let's add a little image. This is just rough for now. I'll tag CEO text and the class, once again, max width. And underneath that, it seems to be a paragraph. We'll put in again class no margin and say CEO of Acme Corp. I really can't spell tonight. Acme. Save that. Okay, great. Okay, so the width 60, let's add a padding right to this. Width 60. Let's say 60 pixels. Nope. Okay, let's just check in something. Right, width 60, width 40. So we've added padding right 100 and border left yellow. And let's add these classes into the style sheet. So padding right 100 and border left. Oh. Make sure you put the little dot in, guys, or the period sign. Border left yellow, and we want to add a 1 pixel solid, and let's find the color from Photoshop. Zoom in. And the color is FFBC 2D. So put the hash symbol in, then paste that. And we want to say border left and save that. Okay, so that has a margin, and this block quote I believe doesn't to the top, that's why they're not level yet. But what we can do is put these two, so div class, and what can this section be called? Main content. Put it over the width 60 and the width 40, so come under these two, close that div off, main content, indent these in, copy all of this, and press the tab. I believe we should now need the clear. Or main content box, name it main content box, because there may be a main content somewhere else in the site. Main content box. As I said, guys, I'm doing this on the fly. If this was a real project, I'd be more organized and we'd have classes that made more sense. So margin top 60 pixels. Yeah, I think that looks right, and then we can sort the margin on these out. So we can say main content box, nope, yep, main content box, width 60, then P and first choice. This means the first paragraph, which is this one, which has at the moment a margin top, and we'll set that as 0. So now we should line up, and it doesn't. If I miss something, first child. My bad. Why you do this? Okay. So now these two boxes are in line. Okay, great. This text is too big, so let's see what we can do here. So to match our design, we're going to shrink down the font size. Let's try 16 pixels for now. That might be the existing size, I'm not too sure yet. I don't think that made a difference, so let's try 14. That's better. Right, in this design, okay, let's change this border yellow to 2 pixels and main content box block quote. You notice here with the block quote we don't have the period symbol in front. This is because the block quote doesn't need the sign to show that it's a class, because it's a different type of element. So font size, let's try 22 pixels. Put a line height of 34 pixels, and let's see how that looks. I think that's a nice size. Font family, let's set it to the Noto Sans, so we'll just copy this rather. And font style, I believe, is italic. And let's see what we're left with. Looks good. Right now we have a margin left on this, or padding left. Yeah, so let's remove that as well. Margin, let's just set a 0 margin on this. And now let's have a look at our design. There's maybe a 20-30 pixel padding. So where is this under? This is under the border left yellow. Say padding left. Try 30 pixels. Yeah, that looks good. We'll add a bit of a spacing. No, yeah. So we'll add a margin bottom to the block quote as well, even though we removed it. Where's it by? Where are we by? Okay, so the block quote is down here. We set the 0 margin, and we can just say margin bottom 30 pixels. And that should give us a margin here. That looks a little better. Okay, so finally I think this image here is too big, so let's shrink that down for now. So 375, 60. Let's try 460. And maybe we can make the width a bit smaller as well, because now it looks a little too chunky. Okay, and finally I think we can take some of the padding off here now. The padding left of 100, that could become maybe 60. I think that looks good. So let's change those two classes. Padding left. And just because we've changed it in here, guys, we still have to change it in the home page. So padding left 100, padding left 60. I think that looks good. zoom out. Have we missed anything? And nope. So far, that's quite similar to what we have. We'll head on to the next section in the next video. So if you've enjoyed this, guys, please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll be adding more and more web development tutorials over the next few weeks, months, and hopefully years. And yes, I'll continue this series and you'll be updated when the next video is posted. So thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed.